Happening now, a desperate search for a 23-year-old Philadelphia woman. Kada Scott was last seen 4 days ago. Her family says she was at work one moment and gone the next. They also say she was being harassed over the phone by a stranger. And Steve, you spoke with Kada's family tonight. What did they tell you?
Well, this is where she went to work late Saturday night, and this is the same spot where she never came home from work early Sunday morning.
Go away, bitch. Don't come over here. Karen, call the cops. Call the... It's all these kids in here. Call the cops, you dumb bitch. He coming around the window. Go that way, Cameron. Yeah, bitch. Go away. Bye. Go away. Bye. Yep, bye. Bye. Keon out here.
Y'all ever had that feeling that something's not right? That's what Kada Scott had. Days before October 4th, she's telling people, somebody's harassing me. Somebody's calling my phone. I don't feel safe. She's 23, working overnight shifts to pay for college, doing everything right. And then one night, she walks out of work at 10:45 p.m. and never walks back in. Her car's there, her keys aren't, her phone, silent. Philadelphia PD is about to launch one of the biggest searches this city's ever seen, and what they find, girl. This is Shadowed Crimes TV. You already know what we do here. This is the full breakdown of the case. Kada Scott was born and raised in Philadelphia. 23 years old with a personality that lit up every room she walked into. She wasn't just another young woman trying to make it, she was making moves. Recently started working at the Terrace at Chestnut Hill, an assisted living facility where she cared for seniors. 2 weeks into the job, working those overnight shifts from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., trying to stack her money for college. And listen, Kada wasn't quiet about her dreams either. She had a whole social media presence, the kind where people actually paid attention. She competed in the Miss Philadelphia Township pageant.
Hello everyone, my name is Kada and I'm here with
She was that girl, the one with plans, with goals, with a future that looked bright as hell. But here's where things get heavy. In those days leading up to October 4th, Kada told her family and friends something that should have set off every alarm. She said strangers were harassing her over the phone. She said she felt uneasy. She never told anyone exactly who was behind those calls, but that fear, it was real, and it was building. Now, Kada lived just 5 minutes from her job. 5 minutes. The kind of distance that should feel safe, you know? Close to home, familiar neighborhood. Nothing that should make a young woman worry about getting to and from work. But something was already wrong. Something was already in motion. October 3rd, the night before everything changed. Kada's mother saw her at approximately 9:50 p.m. Kada was heading out for her shift. Probably had her phone in hand like any other 23-year-old. Probably thinking about getting through another night at work. Her mama didn't know that would be the last time she'd see her daughter's face. October 4th, 2025, Thursday night. Kada clocked into her shift at the Terrace at Chestnut Hill around 10 p.m. Everything seemed normal at first. Just another overnight shift caring for the residents. But here's where the timeline gets murky, and I need y'all to pay attention to this part. Kada didn't finish her shift. Let me say that again. She didn't finish her full shift. Somewhere between arriving at 10 p.m. and when she should have gotten off at 6 a.m., Kada left that facility. Co-workers were interviewed later, and according to police, there was nothing too extravagant in her statements from those interviews. Nothing that screamed emergency. Nothing that explained why she would just leave around 10:45 p.m. Kada was last seen walking out of the building. Security footage would later show her heading toward the parking lot, her phone probably in her hand, probably on whatever she had planned after work. But that's where the trail goes cold. By the next morning, when Kada should have been checking in, should have been responding to texts, should have been active on social media, there was nothing. Complete silence. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her Instagram, the account where she regularly posted and engaged with followers, went dark. Her Apple Watch, her iPad, all of it, untraceable. And here's what made everyone's stomach drop. Kada's car was still sitting in that parking lot. A car doesn't just sit there with its owner nowhere to be found unless something is terribly, terribly wrong. Police processed that vehicle looking for anything, signs of struggle, blood, evidence of foul play. They came up empty, but what was missing told its own story. Her car keys, gone. Her phone, gone. Her iPad, gone. Everything Kada would need to live her life, to stay connected, to stay safe. All of it vanished with her. Her family started panicking immediately. Like we're talking about a young woman who was active on social media, who stayed in touch, who didn't just disappear without saying something to somebody. Her aunt started making calls, asking questions, trying to piece together what happened. One of them would later say,
I think it's definitely wrong. She wouldn't just leave and not contact anyone, none of her friends, family. Her phone been off since Saturday, well, to my life since Sunday morning, and it's going completely right straight to voicemail.
Make it make sense. How does a 23-year-old woman just evaporate into thin air? Now there was something else about that workplace that made this even more suspicious. We're talking about a senior living facility with residents who need care, with staff coming and going, with protocols and security measures. Yet somehow there were no surveillance cameras around the parking lot area. None. So the exact moment Kada left, the exact moment something went wrong, there's no footage of it. Police confirmed they found no video cameras in the area where her car was parked. By October 5th, Kada's family was in full crisis mode. They couldn't reach her. Her social media was silent. Her car was abandoned. And those harassing phone calls she'd mentioned, now they felt less like a nuisance and more like a warning sign everyone missed. Here's where investigators started connecting dots that painted a chilling picture. While Kada's family was frantically searching for answers, Philadelphia police were doing what they call a deep dive into her social media presence. Remember, Kada had a significant following online. She used her iPhone, her Apple Watch, her iPad, all of it to build her platform, to connect with people, to share her life. And detectives started wondering, did someone from that online world cross into her real world? But the investigation took a sharp turn when they identified someone much closer to the situation, a 21-year-old man named Keon King. King wasn't some random stranger from the internet. According to authorities, he was the last person known to be in contact with Kada before she disappeared. Let me be clear about what that means. Police had digital evidence showing communication between Kada and Keon King in the hours before she vanished. Messages, phone calls, contact that suddenly stopped right around the time Kada went dark. Now investigators started pulling King's movements, tracking his phone, following his digital footprint across Philadelphia. And what they found was a 1999 metallic gold Toyota Camry with Pennsylvania plates, registration number MSX0797. That car belonged to Keon King. And here's the thing, that vehicle had heavy front-end damage on the left side. The kind of damage that makes a car stand out, the kind you'd notice if you saw it parked in your neighborhood.
Live coming out of the condominium complex. This is the vehicle police have been searching for several days now. They made the plea to the public to help them find this 1999 Toyota Camry that you are looking at right now. during a news conference at 10:30 this morning.
Police started getting reports of that gold Camry showing up in multiple locations: Mount Airy area, Center City, Grays Ferry, Southwest Philadelphia. This car was moving all over the city in the days after Kada disappeared, and King was behind the wheel. But here's what made detectives' blood run cold. Keon King had a history, not just any history, a history of doing exactly what they suspected he'd done to Kada. Earlier in 2025, King had been arrested and charged with kidnapping and strangulation of another woman. Another woman, let that sink in. The case involved a female acquaintance, someone who knew him, someone who trusted him enough to be around him. According to the allegations, King kidnapped this woman right in front of her house, threw her into her own car, and assaulted her before eventually letting her out. There was even video evidence of the incident footage that showed King lurking outside a woman's window, peering in from the yard like something out of a nightmare. That case should have kept King off the streets, should have, but in May 2025, the charges were withdrawn. Why? Because the victim didn't show up to court. She didn't appear at the first listing, and she didn't appear at the second. Without the victim's testimony, the district attorney's office marked the case as must be tried at the first hearing, then withdrew it entirely at the second when she still didn't show. So Keon King walked free, free to move around Philadelphia, free to contact Kada Scott, free to be the last person she communicated with before vanishing. Now y'all might be asking, why didn't that victim show up to court? We don't know. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was threatened. Maybe she just wanted to move on with her life and forget the whole thing happened. But what we do know is this: that withdrawn case meant King was out here with a pattern, a documented pattern of kidnapping and violence against women, and nothing stopped him. By the time Philadelphia PD connected King to Kada's disappearance, they knew they were dealing with someone dangerous. Someone who'd done this before. Someone who knew how to control, manipulate, and harm women he claimed to know. The question wasn't if King was involved anymore. The question was, where was Kada and what had he done to her? October 6th, 2 days after Kada disappeared, her family couldn't sit still anymore. They started putting up missing person flyers everywhere, on poles, in stores, anywhere people would see her face. Her aunts were out there stapling papers, talking to neighbors, begging anyone who'd seen anything to come forward. Philadelphia police weren't playing around either. This case got moved from Northwest Detective Division straight to the homicide unit. Now, I know what y'all thinking, homicide, but they still looking for her alive, right? Let me explain what the police explained, because this part matters. Deputy Commissioner Frank Van Noore made it clear: we have the most experienced investigators in our homicide unit. They have the most experience dealing with all types of investigations. They also have the most resources available to them. Translation? They were throwing everything they had at finding Kada Scott. The homicide division wasn't just for dead bodies, it was for the cases that needed the best detectives, the most resources, the kind of investigation that couldn't afford mistakes. And they needed all that expertise because this case was complex. Investigators were following digital breadcrumbs, phone records, surveillance footage, GPS data, social media activity. They were tracking King's movements through his phone, watching that gold Camry pop up on cameras across the city. Every ping, every video clip, every witness statement was building a timeline of where King went and when. But here's what was eating at everyone. Where was Kada? October 11th, a week after Kada vanished, Police got a tip that led them to the Wissahickon Valley Park area, specifically near the Morris Arboretum in East Germantown. This is a massive green space, wooded, with trails and hidden areas where anything could be concealed, and police decided they weren't taking any chances. Commissioner Kevin Bethel made a decision that showed just how serious they were taking this case. He shut down the entire Philadelphia Police Academy, shut it down. Then he took over 300 recruits, men and women who were training to become officers, and bused them to the Arboretum for a search operation. Picture this: hundreds of recruits in uniform, standing shoulder to shoulder, walking through the Wissahickon grounds inch by inch. They were placing flags down whenever they found anything that needed a closer look. They brought in K-9 units. They brought in search dogs from the New Jersey State Police. The Marine unit even showed up to search a small pond in the area. This wasn't just a search. This was a full-scale operation. Neighbors came out of their houses watching, some of them scared because they'd never seen that many police in their neighborhood before. One resident said it was kind of scary, because we don't have that. We never see this many officers. After hours of combing through the Arboretum, police came up with nothing. No body, no evidence, no Kada. It was disappointing, but in some twisted way it kept hope alive. If they hadn't found her there, maybe she was still out there somewhere. Maybe. But investigators weren't stopping. They kept following King's trail, kept tracking that gold Camry, kept pulling surveillance footage from gas stations, ATMs, traffic cameras, anywhere that car might have been captured. Then came the breakthrough. October 13th. Police returned to an area they'd been watching, an abandoned middle school in East Germantown called the Ada H. Lewis Middle School. This building had been closed down, sitting empty, surrounded by woods that stretched way beyond the property. And in those woods, investigators found something that made their hearts sink. They found Kada's bank card, her phone case, her glasses. Girl, when I tell you this changed everything. Those items being there meant Kada had been in that area. It meant King had likely brought her there. And it meant the chances of finding her alive were getting slimmer by the second. Police sealed off the area again, brought in forensics teams, started processing every inch of those woods, but they still couldn't find Kada's body. The wooded area behind that abandoned school was dense, overgrown, the kind of place where something or someone could be hidden, and not found for months or even years. Meanwhile, King was trying to stay ghost. Police said he'd gotten rid of things, the car, phones he'd been using, anything that could tie him directly to what happened. He had an address in Southwest Philadelphia, but it looked like he wasn't using it anymore. He was moving around, staying off the radar, doing everything he could to avoid being caught. But the net was closing. Tips were flooding in from the public. People who'd seen that gold Camry, people who knew King, people who remembered seeing something suspicious around the time Kada disappeared. Philadelphia PD set up a tip line, 215-686. Tips, and the calls kept coming. October 14th, late at night, Keon King finally came in. Whether he turned himself in or was picked up, police got him into custody, and once they had him, the interrogation began. Deputy Commissioner Van Orr stood in front of cameras and laid it out plain. It is pretty clear that she was in communication with an individual. That individual appears to meet her very shortly after she leaves her place of work, and very shortly after that she disappears off of the footprint. That individual was Keon King, and now they had him. October 15th, 2025, in the early morning hours, the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office filed charges against King. The lead charge? Kidnapping. He was also charged with recklessly endangering another person and use of a communication facility, meaning they could prove through his phone records that he was in contact with Kada, and using his phone as part of whatever he did to her.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since 23-year-old Kada Scott went missing. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner giving new details on the suspect in her disappearance. Keon King and asking any other potential victims to come forward with any information in this case. Thanks for joining us here on Fox Local on the 10 o'clock news. I'm Jason Martinez.
And I'm Dawn Timoney. King has been arrested and charged with kidnapping Scott, but there is still no sign of where the young woman could be. And Ellen, you've been speaking with family members who have lots of questions, but obviously just want her home.
Yeah, absolutely. So many questions surrounding why Keon King was out on bail after being accused in another case. But really, Kada Scott's family, they just want answers, and they say what really matters now is just getting her home.
We're just trying to stay hopeful, and we just want, Kada to come home, and we just want some information.
We got to keep praying. We got to keep hoping. We got to keep believing. We know the city of Philadelphia is behind us. Kim can feel your prayers. We can feel your love.
Kada Scott's aunts say her mother, Kim, is too overwhelmed to talk, but they want everyone to know they feel all the love and support since the 23-year-old went missing on October 4th.
We take pride in everything that the city is doing right now, and we are grateful and we appreciate it. On behalf of our family, we are really grateful.
Even grateful for strangers who turned out to pray outside Kada's work for her safe return.
God has sent us here to remind everyone here in this facility, in this neighborhood, and everyone watching at home that God is a miracle worker. And a miracle is on the way.
Meantime, DA Larry Krasner faced tough questions about why 21-year-old Keon King was out on bail after this widely shared video shows King leering into another woman's window in a prior kidnapping case that was withdrawn in May. He first blamed cash bail, then judges, then eventually took some responsibility.
We could have done better in that a really sophisticated approach to the case would have been to try to put it all on with video evidence. That is not usually an easy thing to do. I would say with 20/20 hindsight, it's something that could have been done, and I own that. I mean, ultimately the buck stops here.
There was a lot of talk about things that should have been done. It's kind of too late for that for us. So that's a procedural issue that definitely needs to be looked at. But right now, we're not getting into the procedural issues. Should he have been let out?
Kada's family just wants to focus on getting the word out that investigators need help and that more victims might be out there.
Anybody that knows anything, we're just asking you to please do the right thing. Contact the detectives, whoever you need to contact.
Now, there's also a GoFundMe with a reward for any possible credible information that could help in this case, and that's on our website. That's where you can find it. And again, if you have any information about Kada Scott or about any other possible victims connected to this situation, please reach out to Philadelphia Police immediately. Jason?
Assistant District Attorney Ashley Toslowski, who'd been assigned to the case when it moved to homicide, explained what they could prove at that moment. What we're able to confirm and what I was able to charge on is what we know, which is that this person, Mr. King, is the last person we believe to be in contact with her, and that he was in contact with her when she went offline, meaning her phone, everything. King was being held on $2.5 million bail. $2.5 million. That's not the kind of bail you post unless you got serious money. And King definitely didn't have it. He was stuck. But here's where it gets even more infuriating. Remember that previous kidnapping case from earlier in 2025? The one that got withdrawn when the victim didn't show up. ADA Toslowski pulled that file, reviewed every piece of evidence, every statement, every bit of video they had, and she made a decision after an extensive review of it.
2025 case for very similar conduct, strangulation and kidnapping. That case had been withdrawn by our office based on the witness failing to appear at court. I pulled that file, and after an extensive review of it, our office made the decision to refile those charges.
So now King was facing 2 kidnapping cases. 2. The new charges for what happened to Kada, and the refiled charges from the woman he allegedly kidnapped and assaulted earlier that year. Both cases would go to preliminary hearings. Both cases had evidence. Both cases showed a pattern of King targeting women, controlling them, hurting them. During a press conference, Commissioner Bethel stood alongside DA representatives and made an urgent plea. We want to encourage anyone that may have been involved with this individual, anyone that may know this individual, please at this point in time, make that phone call. Feel comfortable enough to call us and let us know if you have any information regarding this person, regarding any interaction you've had with this individual. If you have been a victim of any crime regarding this individual, I want you to understand, now is the time to make that phone call and let us know. Because here's the thing, if King did this to one woman in early 2025 and then allegedly did it to Kada, how many others were out there? How many women had he harassed, threatened or hurt who never reported it because they were too scared or didn't think anyone would believe them? The community was angry, rightfully so. District Attorney Larry Krasner faced tough questions about why King was even on the streets to begin with. Why was that first case withdrawn? Why didn't the DA's office do more to keep that victim engaged, to make sure she felt safe enough to testify? Krasner, to his credit, took some responsibility. He said,
We could have done better in that a really sophisticated approach to the case would have been to try to put it all on with video evidence. That is not usually an easy thing to do. I would say with 20/20 hindsight, it's something that could have been done, and I own that. I mean, ultimately the buck stops here.
But Kada's family wasn't trying to hear about hindsight. Her aunt said it best.
There was a lot of talk about things that should have been done. It's kind of too late for that for us. So that's a procedural issue that definitely needs to be looked at. But right now, we're not getting into the procedural issues. You know, should he have been let out?
The pain in their voices was real, because procedural failures dropped cases, victims not showing up to court. All of that meant King was free when he should have been locked up. And now their Kada was missing. King sat in custody, not saying much during interrogation. Police said he remained tight-lipped, refusing to give them what they needed most. Where is Kada? The investigation continued even with King behind bars. That gold Camry still hadn't been recovered, and finding it was crucial. Police believed Kada might have been in that vehicle. They believed it held evidence that could tell them exactly what happened that night. Commissioner Bethel made it clear, this car has traversed through the entire city, and so I want that to be clear, that every neighborhood, every person listening to this, whether you're in North Philly, South Philly, Southwest, Northwest, please open your eyes and see if you locate this car. Tips kept coming in. Searches kept happening. The FBI's Violent Crime Task Force joined the investigation, bringing federal resources to help track down every lead. But the question remained, where was Kada Scott? Her family held prayer vigils outside her workplace. Strangers showed up to support them, to pray for a miracle, to hope that somehow Kada would be found alive. Her father told reporters,
I just want her back. It's my daughter. You know, we all very concerned. It's going on a week. As of tomorrow, it'll be 7 days. We just want her back as soon as possible. Make sure she's safe and want her back home.
By October 17th, nearly 2 weeks after Kada disappeared, the hope was fading, but the family refused to give up. A GoFundMe was set up with a reward for any credible information. Community members organized their own search parties, combing through neighborhoods, posting flyers, keeping Kada's face visible. And then late on the night of October 17th, an anonymous tip came through the police tip line. A tip so specific, so detailed, that investigators knew they had to act on it immediately. October 18th, 2025. 2 weeks to the day since Kada Scott disappeared, that anonymous tip that came in the night before was about to change everything. Around 10 a.m., investigators started following up on what the tipster told them. And listen, this wasn't some vague check this area kind of tip. Commissioner Bethel described it as very specific, specific enough to direct them to an exact location in the wooded area behind that abandoned Ada Lewis Middle School. The same school where they'd already found Kada's belongings days earlier. Police sealed off the area again and went deep into those woods, deeper than they'd gone before. The terrain back there was rough, overgrown brush, fallen trees, the kind of place most people wouldn't venture into unless they had a reason to hide something, and then they found it. A shallow grave. Deputy Commissioner Van Noor's words at the press conference that afternoon were heavy.
Is this the conclusion that we wanted? Absolutely not.
A grim discovery in the search for 23-year-old Kada Scott, who went missing exactly 2 weeks ago tonight. Good evening to you. It's great to be with you on a Saturday night. I'm Ross DiMattei. Authorities have not identified whose remains were found, but they say it appears to be those of a female. CBS News Philadelphia reporter Ryan Hughes joins us live from police headquarters with the latest on this investigation. Good evening, Ryan.
Hey, Ross, good evening. This case has drawn a lot of attention over the past 14 days, but police say it was a very specific tip that they received, which helped lead them to those human remains. And the discovery came only a few hours before Scott's family was set to lead a community search just a short distance away. Raw emotion boiling over in East Germantown after community members learned human remains were found in an area police have been focusing on amid the intensive search for Kada Scott.
Honestly, it's heartbreaking. I have kids myself, and I wouldn't want this for nobody.
Police say they returned to the abandoned Ada H. Lewis Middle School Saturday morning after receiving a very specific and anonymous tip Friday night. Behind the school, deep in the woods, investigators tell us they found a woman's body in a shallow grave.
After being able to remove some of the debris back there, able to locate the body of a human being. All indications at this point is that it's a female.
A female body in a shallow grave behind an abandoned school, in the exact area where Kada's personal items had been found. But police couldn't officially confirm it was Kada's yet. That determination had to come from the medical examiner's office through DNA analysis, dental records, whatever forensic methods they needed to make an absolute identification. Commissioner Bethel made that clear.
All indications at this point is that it's a female. We are not going to confirm at this point that it is Miss Kada Scott because that has to be done by the medical examiner's office. But we have been in communication with her family as to this process and the fact that we have recovered a human being. And so at this point, it's still a lot of work to be done.
Imagine being Kada's mother getting that phone call, being told they found a body but they can't confirm if it's your daughter yet. The not knowing in that moment, even when you already know, that's a pain I wouldn't wish on anybody. The body was carefully removed from the scene and transported to the medical examiner's office. The investigation was now moving into its final heartbreaking phase. Police made it clear this person had been deceased for several days. This wasn't something that just happened yesterday. Whenever Kada's was killed, it happened close to when she disappeared. Commissioner Bethel's voice cracked a little when he addressed the reality of the situation. Is this the conclusion that we wanted? Absolutely not. But at this point now we have to do everything in our power to ensure that we bring justice for this family and some level of closure. The community's reaction was immediate and raw. People had been holding out hope for 2 weeks that Kada's would be found alive, that maybe she was being held somewhere and could be rescued. But now that hope was gone, replaced by grief and rage. Community members who'd gathered near the school when they heard about the discovery started yelling at police as they walked back from the scene. Not because they were mad at the officers themselves, but because of the emotion, the frustration, the pain of knowing a young black woman's life had been stolen, and there was nothing anyone could do to bring her back. Commissioner Bethel understood that anger. He went on to detail everything the Philadelphia Police Department had done to find Kadas, shutting down the academy, bringing in 300 recruits to search, calling in K-9 units from New Jersey, deploying the Marine unit, working around the clock with the FBI's Violent Crime Task Force.
As you know, we've been searching, have done multiple searches. We shut down the police academy. That was a decision made by myself and Commissioner Bethel to shut down the police academy over a week ago, where we brought out the entire group of recruits to comb through this area. Again, so I know, listen, no one is happy that this is the ending, and completely understand that this is a lot on our investigators, a lot on all of us, because again, we all have family members, and this could have been any one of our family members, could be anybody's family member, and that's understood, and that's the reason that you see the tireless work that's been done by starting with Northwest Detectives, and then by Homicide, by our partners through the FBI, through our forensics office, through any and everybody that has been a part of this process, because we wanted to bring some level of closure to this family.
But knowing all that effort went into the search didn't make the outcome any less devastating. Hours before Kada's body was found, her family had been preparing to lead their own community search. They'd organized volunteers, mapped out areas to cover, were ready to keep looking for her themselves, because they couldn't just sit around waiting. And then they got the call that police had found remains. Kada's father had spoken to reporters that very morning, still holding on to hope. He'd said,
"Each day gets harder and harder, more and more difficult emotionally."
CBS News Philadelphia spoke with Scott's father Saturday morning before the new developments. He told us he was hopeful his daughter would be found.
We want Kate home as soon as possible. Things are not good, but we still are positive.
By that afternoon, that positivity was shattered. The medical examiner worked through the weekend to process the body and make an official identification. And when that confirmation came, it was what everyone already knew in their hearts. The body found in that shallow grave was 23-year-old Kada Scott. She'd been murdered, buried like trash in the woods behind an abandoned school, left there while her family searched desperately, while the city mobilized to find her, while her mother prayed for a miracle that would never come. With Kada's body recovered and her death confirmed, the charges against Keon King were about to get significantly more serious. What had been kidnapping charges would now likely include murder. The DA's office told reporters they were waiting on the medical examiner's full report, cause of death, time of death, any evidence of assault or trauma before determining exactly what additional charges to file. ADA Ashley Toslowski said, "As soon as we hear from them, it'll guide us in what we do." Translation: once they knew how Kada died, they'd know what degree of murder to charge King with. King remained in custody on that $2.5 million bail, now facing the reality that he wasn't just looking at kidnapping charges anymore. He was looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. The preliminary hearings for both kidnapping cases, the refiled 2025 case and Kada's case, would move forward. But now Kada's case would be upgraded to include homicide charges. King had not entered a plea yet, and his attorney hadn't made any public statements. Police were still asking for tips, still trying to piece together every detail of what happened that night. They still hadn't recovered that gold Toyota Camry, which could hold crucial forensic evidence. And they were still asking anyone who might have been victimized by King to come forward, because the pattern was clear. This man was dangerous, had been dangerous, and who knows how many other women he'd hurt. Kada Scott was 23 years old. She had dreams of finishing college. She worked overnight shifts, taking care of elderly people who needed her. She had a smile that lit up rooms and a social media presence that showed the world who she was. Young, vibrant, full of life, and she told people she was being harassed. She said she didn't feel safe. She sensed something was wrong, but the system that should have protected her failed. A man with a documented history of kidnapping and violence was walking free because a previous victim didn't show up to court. No follow-up, no victim advocacy that could have kept that woman engaged in the process. No alternative way to prosecute using the video evidence they had. Just dropped. And that failure cost Kada Scott her life. Her family will never get her back. Her mother will never see her daughter graduate college, get married, have children. Her aunts will never hear her laugh again. Her friends will carry the weight of her loss forever. This case should make us ask hard questions. How many times does a pattern have to repeat before we recognize it? How many women have to say, "I don't feel safe," before we listen? How many cases have to be dropped before we find better ways to hold dangerous people accountable? Kada's aunt said it best, "Anybody that knows anything, we're just asking you to please do the right thing." Because at the end of the day, doing the right thing, whether that's showing up to court as a witness, reporting suspicious behavior, speaking up when something feels off, that's what could save the next woman's life. The Philadelphia community rallied around Kada's family in their grief. Vigils were held. Her story was shared thousands of times on social media. People who never knew her personally felt the weight of her loss because it could have been their daughter, their sister, their friend. And somewhere in Philadelphia, that gold 1999 Toyota Camry is still out there. If you see it, if you know where it is, call Philadelphia Police at 215-686-8477, because even though Kada's gone, the search for complete justice continues. Rest in peace, Kada Scott. Your life mattered, your dreams mattered, your fear was valid. And you deserved so much better than what this world gave you. This has been Shadowed Crimes TV. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share Kada's story, keep her memory alive. And if you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, speak up. Don't wait, don't hope it'll get better on its own. Because sometimes tomorrow doesn't come.